G'day guys, my name's Dale Baxter. I'm from Melbourne in Victoria. I work in the car industry and work for probably one of the best car companies going around, which is Porsche, so I'm pretty pleased about that. So I've been fishing the Hobie Series. This will be my 11th year this year. I first started in 2012. My first event actually was Marlow, and yeah, Nick Mason, Scott Baker, some of the old-time guys had convinced me to buy one of the ex-Australian Championship Pro Anglers, and that's how I sort of got into it. And yeah, first round was Marlow here. We had a record field back then of 67 entries, which was pretty impressive. And I came away with a 7th place, and I thought, oh, how good's this, you know? So, but Marlow certainly can dish up the tough times as well. Look, the main style of fishing that I like to do is really structure fishing. For me, you know, living in the city, I get out every week, fish the rivers in Melbourne, which are the Maribyrnong River and the Yarra River mainly, but there's a lot of docks and pontoons and, you know, wharfs and different jetties and boats and things like that. So it's very much a structure-based fishing system, and I really like to, I'd say my specialty is actually sight casting structure fish and having fun with that and trying to get them out. And I just found the kayak's the best way to do that, especially, you know, launching anywhere in the city really helps. Yeah, I think probably the best way to I approach fishing the structure is I'll generally use either a crab or a stick minnow or some of the new mussel lures that have come out, but you could use like a microvibe from the guys at Duro. They've been around for a long time, and basically what I want to try and imitate is a falling mussel or a bit of debris off the side of the pontoon or the pylon or something falling down the side. And I've watched many brim over the years basically chase those things down, and from there, it's a very visual fishing. You might be in under a dock and you're casting 2 meters away to a pylon to a fish that's actually feeding, and you watch it take your lure, and it's just like white knuckle fishing. It's so good, so good. So I've been with Daiwa for probably 6-7 years now. They've been a great supporter of mine for a long time. I've pretty much used their reels and some of the rods initially since I started fishing, especially fishing tournaments, and getting more into the brim tackle scene. I've realised that Daiwa was the way to go. In regards to, you know, I think I'm on one of their, they've got a couple of different tiers, but one of the top tiers in regards to that, and I've worked my way up to that. It's taken a bit of time to get there, but that is also based on how much input you put in and different things. It's not about tournament fishing or anything like that. It's about promotion and helping that brand be able to sell more product at the end of the day. Yeah, the product development side of things, you know, good friend of mine I've known for a long time, Tom Slater, had been with Daiwa only for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, but Tom was previously with a different company that he helped me out with, and he gets some input from me from time to time. You know, there's such a good brains trust of anglers that Daiwa look after, that to help develop, you know, new range of products and things like that. You know, Tom manages to reach out to a number of different people in different skill sets and things like that. Now, my specialty obviously is fishing out of a kayak, is a little bit different to fishing out of a boat or doing some land-based fishing. So, you know, I've been fishing out of a kayak for a long time, and that was one thing that I thought we could add, you know, some feedback. And, you know, you get to test all the new products before they're out and give feedback on that and whether you like it or dislike it, and that's sort of a massive bonus, I think. Yeah, the Infeet range of rods is a really good one. You know, there have been Infeet models around for quite a long time, but they did disappear for a little while. And originally, when we brought these back, there was 4 rods in the range, and you know, I sort of gave Tom a bit of feedback in regards to handle length, and obviously, you know, we talk about tapers along with, you know, the other brim guys that are on as part of the team. You know, there's, like I said before, there's such a brains trust there of different styles and techniques that everyone likes to use. But, you know, I find specifically out of a kayak that one of the things that I was sort of pushing was to get slightly shorter handles in the range, which allow you to sit down and cast. And so that development goes back to the product manager, and they're able to then implement, you're able to test samples, and then from there, you know, deliver a product for the end user that's a bit more specific. And you know, that first range of 4 Infeet rods was really interesting. They were sort of a little bit more generic. And then when he relaunched the second range of that in 2020, they got very specific, you know, very technique specific. And that was one of the key things with this range of rods, is that that's one of the key things with this range of rods, is that you're able to have very technique specific design to throw particular lures that you're going to get the best action out of. And ultimately the key for that is to really get you more fish into your boat at the end of the day. You know, like I was saying before, this length between here and here, I've actually recently done an article on this that's should be up on the Daiwa webpage, but that, when you're sitting down, is very specific to kayak angling. You know, having a little bit longer butt is great for leverage on a fish, but having this and being able to cast with it all day is really important, so it doesn't get caught up in your PFD, or you know, your side of your chair here and everything like that. So yeah, those sort of key things really, I think, cater to every angler now. Yeah, some of the new lure range that's coming out, like especially the biggest one that's had the latest amount of feedback, is probably the new double clutch shallow. So that SR being that shallow running bib, but in a double clutch profile. Double clutch is probably one of Daiwa's best selling jerkbait lures for, you know, all types of fishing. You know, they've now got a 48mm double clutch all the way through to a 115 for your barra and your big species like that. But having a shallow jerkbait, especially for black brim, is really a key. You know, over those shallow sand flats and everything, this jerkbait has been a long time in development. The guys even come down from Sydney and fish a lot of the local systems here, like Tamboon and Malakuta and things like that, to really fine tune these and make sure they are actually going to work. So they've been in development for a little while, but yeah, the end results are really good. I did only get my hands on some a couple of weeks ago, so I haven't given them a real good run yet, but very keen to do so. And you know, a lot of back and forth goes with those in that development phase. You know, hook sizes and weight sizes, and then different colours for the range. But you know, the whole key with this whole Infeet rod range and series, now that we're running the lures, is pretty much a lure in the Infeet range that you can use for every particular rod we've got. So you know, we've got the new Kadachis, which are a little shallow minnow style. New Sasnami is another very smaller 60mm jerkbait, and even to the small 40mm double clutches. You know, they're fantastic. Even I throw them on the rock walls in Melbourne and, you know, get absolutely annihilated. So yeah, Bait Junkie range has been one of those interesting ones. You know, the plastic development has been around for a little while. I'm not probably really known for a plastics fisherman style. I really prefer, you know, the structure fishing with some of the other hard bodies and things like that. But you know, over the previous couple of years of lockdowns and things like that, I've fished a local system of mine that is predominantly just a plastics fishery, and I've learnt to use them substantially over the last couple of years and found just the results are amazing. And you know, the Bait Junkie range is, again, you know, with the grubs, and you've got risky critters, which are your creature bait, and the 2.5-inch minnow are your staples across all the different plastics. And such a great colour range. You know, colours that I didn't think would catch fish are catching fish. And then, you know, they've been spent about 2 years or so developing this jig head after about 27 different prototypes. They've come up with a final result. And it's funny, this weekend I've been talking to a number of the different anglers here who have started using these, and they're so amazed by that hook keeper, of how it keeps your plastic on the hook and doesn't disappear, doesn't have to constantly readjust it. You know, small things like that, really, I think they just want to improve the tackle industry and make things that, you know, give anglers better chance of catching fish. Yeah, I've been using a PA since I started back in 2012. You know, I just feel the PA is such a great fishing platform. I use a PA 14. I don't like the 12. I find them just a little bit probably imbalanced. I stand a lot in my kayaks, so having something that was very stable when you're standing in it, especially casting and sight casting to fish at structure, you sort of want to stand up and have that sort of better visual of where you're casting to. So the PA really suited me. Worked a lot with Rich Patterson. He came up with this design and I sort of just helped with a couple of little placements of logos more than anything. But yeah, Pato did a ripper job on the design. Obviously, I've been running the Infeet range of rods since the inception of that newer model range back in 2017 or 2018. I first used a prototype back on the Georges River when I went and fished that round. And yeah, I thought it was really fitting. It's really nice to be back in a wrap kayak again. I've been without one for about 4 or 5 years, and you know, the feedback from everyone's been fantastic. And the only thing is you can't hide on the water now. Yeah, so as we saw, you know, the double clutches, they were released in the product showcase back in January. You know, there is a plethora of new products coming out this year. So the good thing is the team up at Daiwa HQ, they've been really pushing to make sure once they release something, they get it out fairly quickly. So double clutch SR, due in stores early March. Then a bit of a restock, Sazanami, which is the Infeet, the 60mm minnow. They're due back in stores in around April. Double clutches, Kadachis, again back in March. So good range for everyone back in stock, especially coming up to the next Hobie rounds and things like that. There's always plenty of stock coming through, so you should be able to get your hands on some of the probably the best jerk baits going around. Yeah, probably a couple of the tips that I'd like to share with people, you know, in especially my style of fishing, which is structure fishing and fishing those pontoons, and whether it be, you know, in the Georges River, I used this specifically up there and, you know, had good results. But like fishing bridges, pylons, pontoons, anything where there's structure and you know there's fish holding onto it, accurate casting is probably the number one, the key. I really try and make sure that you're hitting the water and the edge of the structure you're fishing as close as you can. If you're half a foot out or 3 inches, 4 inches out, you're probably not going to get bit. Especially if you're sight casting fish that are feeding. I find that accurate cast is probably number one. Number two would be make sure that once it lands, it sits there with slack line. So I actually let quite a bit of line sit on top of the water so that whether it's a crab or a mussel or a stick minnow, even in a really lightly weighted plastic, it falls much more naturally if it's not getting on a tight line. With a tight line, you'll find it'll tend to get pulled away from the structure and then it's taking it out of that strike zone. And number three, just have as much fun as you can. You know, it's watching a fish eat your lure and sit there shaking its head at you and then you just like muscling it out. That's probably the number one factor for me. Keep going back, you know, week after week and fishing the same areas. I fish the same areas fairly regularly, and that's the one thing, you know, you sort of don't get sick of it. So you got to make it enjoyable.